harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, and today my guest is calling in from Louisiana. Born, raised, and living, as he puts it. His name is Jody Webb. Jody, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Beverly.
This is the place where being that best you is going to even get easier today after Coach has a lot to share, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know it.
So why do they call you Coach Webb?
Well, I've been teaching and coaching. My coaching is in football and also some in track and field on the field event side. This will be my 20th year teaching, and I've been coaching for 19 years. And so, you know, when I started, and all through the time, it's like, coach this, coach that, you know. And so now I'm kind of transitioning towards being a life coach. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to be Coach Webb all my life, so I might as well just roll with it. So I've kind of like taken that as my brand, as I am Coach Webb. I am a really good coach.
Well, you know, that's great, and there's so many avenues of coaching, so you can never run out of things to do as a coach, right?
Right.
Right. And I understand you're going to start doing some coaching maybe in the virtual reality world.
Yes, that's true. I've set up what I call my campfire experience. And so let me give you a little bit of background. So the person you see today did not exist 11 years ago. Okay. I was really mad. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was pushing people away left and right. I just kind of broke away from everything that I knew, loved, and cared about when I was younger. And the reason why is I'd been not only a victim of abuse when I was a child, but my family chose to lie to me about some very important things. And so when you find out the truth about those things later, or when I found out about them, it just made me question everything. And I was, like I said, I was just kind of living in a world, you know, I had a thing not too long ago. What kind of started me was, you know, first you have survivors, which I am a survivor of abuse. But then you have overcomers, you know, which I feel like I did. But I didn't really feel like that was enough. And I was kind of inspired by a scripture. It says, you're more than a conqueror, which to me as a coach says you're a champion. And so I wanted to be a champion of my life. And so, you know, and it unfortunately took me going into one of the lowest times. I mean, I had nothing. I was homeless. I had pushed away all my friends. The only person I could really call for help was my mom. And so, and I'd had enough. You know, I said, I'm tired of this. I obviously need to do something different, because I'd kind of ended up in that place more than, not the homeless part, but the angry, alone, feeling just completely disconnected from the world and everybody in it. And I didn't want to be that anymore. And I think that's where it starts. You get to a point where you just don't want to be in that spot anymore. And unfortunately, though, a lot of people don't know how to get out of it. And for men, especially old school men that were brought up like, you know, be tough, walk it off. It's just a scratch, you know, those kind of things. You're not encouraged to talk about your feelings at all. And then when you're living in an abusive household, you can multiply that about 50. So it took me a while to get to the point where I could learn to, you know, express my emotions, express my feelings, express how I was truly feeling, because I just always felt like, well, if I say anything, nobody's going to care, and B, somebody's just going to say, shut up. So I took the step of asking for help, and I found it, and I just dove right in, because like I said, I didn't want to go back. There just wasn't any option of going backwards. I had to move forward into being a different person. And, you know, like I said, 10 years later, that's who you're looking at today.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. And coming from a man's perspective versus a woman's perspective, there is a lot of difference, and it's like men were always taught, and it's always been kind of something that's been in society that men aren't supposed to talk about their feelings. They're supposed to be strong and they're supposed to be whatever, And they always say, well, get in touch with your feminine side. Well, they're saying get in touch with your masculine side. So, but you know what? We are both. We're both masculine and feminine. So it's finding that happy medium. And thank you again so much for sharing that. And, it kind of relates to where I was as a child, as well. Losing my identity and being in that state of depression where I didn't want to go back, but I didn't know how to go forward. And
Right.
and you just kind of blast through it, and all of a sudden you begin listening to, I think a lot of times you find that intuitive strength inside, that can be your driving force, and just say, hey, I'm going to do this come hell or high water, because where I'm at is definitely not a good place, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it has to get better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I did that too as a teenager. It was just kind of from a different space, as I knew I had to get out of where I was. And so I was just driven. I knew from the age of 13 that I was going to college. No matter what it took, I was going to college because I was going to get the heck out of that house. And
Right.
so I became the first person in my family not only to go, but to graduate from college. And my cousins and siblings, well, one of them followed in my footsteps. So it was great to kind of have that kind of influence. So anyway, so I was thinking about, some experiences, also some happy experiences from
Oh,
my
that's
youth.
good. We like happy
Yeah.
experiences too,
Yeah,
because
we like,
Coach, when you say your story, when you shared that story, because this show is all about being the best you that you can be, it really impacts a lot of people's lives, especially men. We do have men watching the show, and it's heartfelt. I can tell,
yeah,
it was really heartfelt to say, hey, it doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what your belief system is. It matters that you're a human that's
right,
looking to be a better them, and getting that support. And for me, I think one of the biggest upsets that we've done on the planet is not really being there to support those that are going through things, just having that team of support with no judgments and no strings
right,
attached, right? Yeah,
right,
they can help you get out of a situation, but then it's like you're just hanging in midair. It's that continuous support in regardless of what it is, right? And so when you continue with your story here and what you're sharing, because this is really awesome, kind of share with the audience too how each one of these aha moments made you that better you. Like graduating from college, oh my gosh,
yeah,
that is really a great accomplishment, especially being in the situations that you were, and that driving force, and what was the real drive at 13? Was it
like I
just
said, it was being in that situation um, twice in a row. So my mom just picked bad men. Let me just be 100 about it. My mom was terrible at picking men. And so her first husband was a Vietnam veteran and probably suffered a little bit from Agent Orange syndrome, but was one of those guys. Wasn't willing to do anything about it. And it just became toxic. And it was really especially toxic towards me. And so the one thing that I knew was that there was a way out.
right,
The only way out that I could think of and know at that time, because I was a scared kid.
right,
My thought was, if I say anything, it's just going to get worse. And so I was like, okay, then if I'm going to get out of here, school is the answer. I'm a smart kid. I was not real good at sports. In fact, I'm like 1,000 times better as a coach than I was
I was gonna say,
as
now wait a minute. He says he's
yeah,
not good at sports,
I was,
and now he's the coach. But
yeah,
sometimes when you're on the outside looking in, you can see all the strategy, right?
right.
And you
And
can
that was
help
it.
others implement it. But for whatever reason, the personal implementation on that just kind of just didn't click, right?
Right. And by the way, I'm not the only one who has that story. I know a couple of NFL level coaches that weren't that great. They weren't Pro Bowl, they weren't, the best of the best, but they really understood the game,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really good at teaching it. And that's what I've been, because it's all about starting with the basics, just like in life. You start with the basic building
Right.
blocks first, and you work your way up to the more complex and things that we have going on today. And so it was just that, like I said, it was just that thought in my head of there is a way out. And
Right.
the way out is to get the best grades I can, do the best I can in school and go to college. And so I was really lucky that it was weird. So for 2 years of my high school experience, I was living in, a podunk, post office, a general store, and 5 churches. That was my town,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and
Okay.
everybody's, all the people who lived there, there was a lot of farms, and there was a feed mill. That was the whole town. I'm not exaggerating. It's Downsville, Louisiana, if you'd like to look it up. You see that I'm not joking, you know. And so in my junior year, my family decided to move to Benton, Arkansas, and I had no idea why. I was so mad, because I just made a bunch of friends. It was the first time in a long time that I actually had friends in high school. And
Right.
so we moved to Benton, and that's where I had my first computer course. We didn't have computers in Townsville, Louisiana. And so I had my first computer course. I got into a college prep, track rather than just a regular graduating track. As I said, I'm so lucky. My grandmother just really emphasized reading when I was young. She had me reading like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, and, some of those higher level. It wasn't just, I love Dr. Seuss too, but, it was
Right.
she made sure that when I got into school, I was ready to roll. I still have the exact books that she used to read to me and have me read back to her when I was 3 years old. And so, being a good reader helped me become a good writer, which helped me become a good student. And,
Right.
I wasn't getting to do anything because the abusive families don't let their kids go out of the house very much. So I put all my effort, into school, and I got offered I made a 24 on my ACT, got offered a full scholarship at the University of Central Arkansas, and I was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a great moment. It was really great to know that I did it. You know,
Right.
I walked across that doggone stage. I got my little diploma, and I headed straight to college, where I was actually able to kind of break out and develop which is true for a lot of people. When they get out of their parents' influence, they're able to kind of like develop their own personality, interests, things like that. And
Right. That's so
I
true.
just I just went for it. I went for it. I used to I used to have a shirt that said, and that they sold in the bookstore. It said UCA, 5 or 6 of the best years of my life, and it was. It took me 6 years to get through, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when
Right.
I got there. And I've changed my major, I swear, 3 times. But when I finally landed in social studies, and it just clicked, because I love stories. And I think what people miss out a lot on in history is stories. And I was really lucky enough to have some teachers who were great storytellers. And so, they had my attention like this the whole time, you know, and taught me some things as I was, thinking back when I finally decided I
Right.
wanted to go into teaching. I was like, I'm going to remember how this person did this, and how this person did that, how this person. I even remembered some things that they didn't do, which I incorporated into my own, philosophy. So yeah, it was a perfect fit, and kept going. And then I gotta tell you right quick, this one too. You're gonna love this. Do you remember the movie
One,
Freaky
one
Friday?
second, yeah, one
Sure.
second. I want to capitalize on what you were just talking about when you were, saying storytelling. When
Yeah.
you look at today's world and you look at authors and speakers, speaking from stages and things like that, it's all about the story.
Yeah,
right? So
definitely.
becoming that great storyteller, to be able to recognize that in college is like, wow, that storytelling. And I would say it probably went back to where your grandmother,
Hmm.
was reading at you
Oh
at
yeah.
such a young age,
Oh yeah.
and those were stories. But they were more than just stories, and your story is more than just a story, because it
Yes.
impacts so many. And the world has come into a major shifting. I guess if we want to look at the awakening that they've been talking about for like 20 some years, right? That this is part of, my belief is that this is really part of that super awakening, to really begin looking internally here to say, who is this being? Who is this spirit?
Hmm.
Right? And sharing stories, and I hear some of the most beautiful stories on my show. I've met
I
some
know.
unbelievable, awesome people,
Yes.
and just knowing a lot of speakers and authors now, that tell their story. And the big gurus, shall we say, it's all about the story. It's
Hmm.
not about selling this and that, and it's not
No.
about shoving something down someone's throat, but it
No.
is sharing your story, because your story can impact and change the life of someone else,
Yes. Yes,
right?
indeed. And I've been lucky enough. I did a tally in my story in my life. I've been able to impact over 5,000 young people.
Oh my gosh, I just got
Teaching,
chills all
teaching.
over my body.
Yeah.
That's like, wow.
Yeah. Teaching for 20 years. And I estimated I had 100, and sometimes we would be on that, block schedule. So I'd have at least 100 per class. Some years I had five, 5 courses of 100 kids. And then, so I just started counting, and it blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, that's just the immediate. What
Yeah.
about this ripple effect,
Yeah.
right?
Their families, especially when I see some of the guys still that I coach still are connected with me on Facebook, and I see them, getting married and having families, and, getting to work and things that they want to do. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the kid. That's what keeps me going. It
Right.
really does. That's what's kept me
And
going
and
as a
that's what
teacher.
it's all about. So, where's this book? Haven't you written a book yet, Coach?
No, I'm actually working on. I'm actually working on a. I haven't started that book yet, but I have started another one. And so, honestly, Beverly, I had to get to the point where I valued my own story too, and
Yeah.
that's
And that's
only
true.
been a recent thing, because I've always kind of thought of school as my career and my work, but I also understood it as, kind of like a ministry, for lack of that's just how I thought of it. Um, but I don't think I really gave myself enough credit that it was me who was helping.
Right.
I knew it was, but at the same time, I was giving my students all the credit, which they deserve credit for taking the information and actually doing something with, because not all of them did. But the ones that did, I got to see them, succeed, because
Right.
like I said, I related my own experience to them and said, look, I'm just going to tell you what happened to me. This is what I went through. This is what what I would suggest to you. Take it or leave it. But I promise you, if you will follow my advice, you'll be a heck of a lot happier than if you just go off and try to do it, without any guidance at all. And so, um, like I said, it's just been in the past few years, because I keep seeing how people are impacted by my past story, but now they're also being impacted by my present story, which is
Right.
the best me. To use your, what you're looking for here is the best person that you can be right now, and
Right.
you're looking at him. I'm at the best point, despite everything that's happened this year. It actually helped me become a better, like even better than I've ever been, because I had. And here's the key, Bev. I know you get this. I actually had more time to focus on myself.
Oh,
I wasn't.
that. That, Coach, is such a beautiful statement right there, because we've all had time. I mean, we all have the same amount of time, but it's situated differently now because we're not out here running around just busy being busy. We've had alone time, and to utilize that alone time for that inner activity and action to really get to know the self, like what you said that you did, because now coming out of it, it's going to be interesting to see when things kind of get back to some normalcy. Yeah. But it's never going to be even remotely close to what we had. It's going to be a whole new beginning. It's like we're all being rebirthed here before too long. But tapping in on what that book is, I want to share with you what a friend of mine and I are doing. And we've created a course, called the Mindset Shift. And it's putting those pieces together. So basically what we've done is we've brought her book together with my book, because my book shares a lot of the science and the mindset and everything. And her book shares the application, what you can do to apply that, in your daily life, right? So together, we put this 6-week course together called the Mindset Shift, putting the pieces together. And everything that you're speaking about here is pretty much what's going to be in this course, step by step, as to how to recognize where you are, and know the science behind how the brain works and the mind, the thoughts and all of that, right? And then what you can do to start making those steps, how you can shift that mindset, because at 13, you made a very critical mindset shift, right? And then, like you said, oh my gosh, we're moving to Arkansas. Well, you know what? Sometimes universe or God, puts these frequencies together to create an outcome, because your wish was, you're going to college, you're going to college, you're going to college. You didn't know how, but it wasn't for you to know the how. And
It's
so
just to get there,
that's
right?
right. So God is saying, okay, we have to make all this come together, so we can't leave him in this little podunk where he is, because it ain't going to happen. So let's send him over here across the border to Arkansas, right? And look what happened. Look what happened in your high school years, where you ended up getting what? A scholarship.
Yeah. When I looked back on it, and it didn't take long. Like, it was my second year of school. I'm like, man, I was so mad when that happened, but I'm so glad that it happened, because here I am. It was a perfect situation. Really, it was a perfect situation for me. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't see it in the moment, but years later, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this is what needed to happen for this to happen, and this to happen, and this to happen, right? So it's that recognition of the self, and when you do have that time to look internally. And this is part of what the program that we're putting together here in this course is, to help people to really understand and begin to recognize where those aha moments were, where those mindset shifts have begun, and to recognize what a mindset shift really is, right? So that you can oh, now it makes sense, right? And really begin to put those things together. So if any of you listening out there are interested in joining us, you can go to the link below here, the bit.ly/mindset journey, or you can just text on your phone the word mindset to 888-527-7146 and join us for 6 weeks, because it's going to start in October, and it's going to be right at the heart of when the holidays come, so you can have different mindset through the holidays. Who knows what they're going to be like this year, right? But come the new year, come 2021, you're going to be able to set things in motion for accomplishing different goals and different dreams, because we teach you how to take those dreams again from your childhood, and really bring them back to life, and what that was all about. So, and again, if you guys get signed up now in the pre-launch, you're going to save $200, okay? That's
Nice.
a big
That's
savings.
good.
Because
Yeah.
we'll teach you how to take that $200 you saved and treat yourself once you come out end of the 6 weeks.
There you go.
Right? That because you will be a much better you coming out than you were coming in, and that's what life is all about. So, Coach, you were going to mention another story for us. Share
Yeah.
that story.
Well, first I wanted to go back to, my thinking in terms of men being able to share their story.
Okay.
And so I started thinking about the times in my life as a kid when I was happy. And one of my favorites was during the summer, we'd go to Albert Pike, which is in just outside of Hot Springs, Arkansas. And we would camp out for a couple of days. And inevitably, and me as a guy, I love the grill. And men, if you're out there and you love the grill, there you go. I think there's this natural
It's got to be
draw.
a guy thing.
Yeah, I think there's just this natural draw to fire. I've been like a little pyromaniac all my life. I would actually rake the leaves at my aunt's house just so I could set them on fire. That's how serious.
Well, I guess that was a good thing for her. She got all her
Yeah, she got her leaves
raked.
raked and burned. So anyway, so we would eventually end up around the campfire. And so I started talking as I was developing this idea, through virtual reality experience. And I started talking to other guys about it. And I said, I'm thinking about doing like a campfire scene. And every time I said that, there was a response.
Yeah.
There was a positive response. And so I started thinking about, when guys, I'm not a big hunter. I do like to shoot, but I'm more of a bow and arrow kind of dude. But I started thinking about when guys go to the hunting camp, what do they do at the end of the day? They're sitting around a fire,
yeah,
cooking and talking and relating to each other,
right.
And the same thing when you go to the fish camp. That was another one of my fond memories of summer. We'd go down to the cabin and we'd go fishing and just be free to rip, run, and be as loud and crazy as we wanted to. At night, I'd start the fire. We'd get out the hot dogs and the marshmallows, and I was just like,
wait a minute, you were fishing. You're supposed to be cooking fish. What are you doing?
Well,
hot dogs?
sometimes that worked out better than others.
Okay.
Thank God the adults brought food in the coolers, and we had trot lines and stuff like that. But so it was just like, yeah, that's it, the campfire experience. So that's basically how I set up my virtual experience. It's located in the Highlands of Scotland, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And there's a campfire, and it's just a place where guys can come and sit and, we can talk and be real and not have to worry about, like I said, there's no judgment. It's just, hey, let's see if we can tell our story and then make our story work for us, which is the next step. And the one thing I wanted to mention to you, and I know you know this as a coach, and I think what you're doing with this book and this program that you just talked about is super important, because you have that mind shift moment, but you may not be in a position or an environment that completely supports that. Luckily, I had people on the outside, and my mom was like, you go do you. She was super supportive, but she didn't know how to help me, you understand? And so that's, I think, the key component that people miss about coaching and having a coach, even as an adult, is you need that support system. You need a positive person. You need someone who's equally committed to your goals. And it helps to have a group of people. If you can get that, it helps, because that's what did it for me. I don't think one-on-one would have done it. I had to trust 6 other guys with my story. I had to trust 6 other guys with my development. And so it was an experience that I hadn't had really up to that point, of that many people, that many men at once. Men had always been against me and hurting me and whatever,
Right.
And so I had to break that mindset. And Beverly, it was the support after. And that's where a lot of people miss out. It's like you go through the program and you have your aha moment and you have your breakthrough, and you're like, "Ooh, I'm ready to go be me now." And then everybody's looking at you like, "Is this the same person? Aren't you supposed to be like this? Or when did you become that?" And it's become so hard to maintain if you don't have that positive environment of support. So
I think that's beautiful what you're looking to do, and especially in the virtual reality and today's world, because we're this social distancing. I don't know how they can call it social distancing. I mean, it's crazy, but it's that separation. And the human was not meant to be separated. We were meant to be together. We're all connected as one through energy and vibration. And now you're saying we can't be? It's like, oh, that's crazy. So the virtual reality world puts you back in that state, in that frame of connectedness. Now, granted, maybe you're all running around a little avatar, but you know what? You're still you, because there's that human body. The mind, we talk about the mind again, right? Brings that mindset that says, hey, there's somebody right here. There's people right around this campfire with me, right? And we're talking.
Right.
And to be able to open it up to that virtual reality world, let's take it another step further. Because when you are in virtual reality and you have your little avatar, all inhibition disappears. Doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter what you've been through, doesn't matter where you are in the world. None of any of that matters. All that matters is you have a voice, you can share, there's no judgment, it's all support. So to be able to make an opportunity for men to come together like that, I think that is just so amazing, because that word support is so relevant that we don't get, in a lot of instances, even as adults and children, right? And where in your life, all of you listening here today, where have you truly been supported in your life? What was the aha moment? What was that age? Did it last a long time, a short time, no time? Where is that? And how do you reflect? Are you a supporter of others? Or do you point fingers and judge? Wow, that's part of the human element. We're so quick to judge others and point fingers and hold blame, and right? Because why? Because we want to make ourselves feel better than the other guy because we're hurting.
Right.
And it's so bass-ackwards, It's like, okay.
Big time.
So how do we do that? How do we shift out of that? And I think that's coming from that caring heart.
Yes.
So, Coach, if people want to reach you in that virtual reality element, how would they get a hold of you to get there?
Well, the best thing is probably by email. And you can email me at coachweb13is@gmail.com.
Okay, so that's Coach Webb, CoachWebb.
Yes, ma'am.
13
is at gmail.com.
IS?
Yeah.
Okay.
CoachWeb13 is at gmail.com.
Okay.
They can go to my website, which is winninglifesolutions.us.
winninglifesolutions.us.
Yeah, that's what I've called my program, is Winning Life. As I said, when I came across that scripture and it says you're more than a conqueror, I thought, yeah, I'm a champion.
Yeah.
And champions win. And I've been lucky enough. I had a 67% winning percentage as a football coach. That's pretty darn good.
Ooh, that's really good.
You can be counted on to win 6-7 games per year. That gives you the opportunity, to go further. So, yeah.
That's remarkable, because again, when you look at the lives that you changed, because you were man enough to man up, shall we say, right? And share your story with these kids, and I'm sure you were probably speaking directly to some of them that were in similar situations that they were afraid to talk about. They were ashamed. They didn't want anybody to know. But to be able just to hear that and say, you're not alone. It happens to the best of us, but this is a way out,
Right.
and turn them into young men that had hope.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And achieved it, yeah. And it's like, this coming year, I get to see the last class that I taught in Arkansas graduate, and I'm making plans, if it's allowed, if we're in a different situation at that time, I'm going to be there in person. because I want to see that group of kids graduate, because I tell you, there were some special kids in that group. So the other thing I wanted to touch on right quick, Beverly, is that along with that group, you also have to be able to sustain it for yourself, you know. And
Yes.
I think one of the keys of that is, a lot of times, and I was guilty of this so bad. I was a people pleaser. I still have a little bit of that in
Right.
me, to be honest with you, but it's not as much, because I realized that I was giving too much, you know, that I wasn't,
Right.
because my boundaries had been violated. I didn't have any, you know,
Right.
but I had to. So I made the choice to get help. I made the choice to trust people. I finally made the choice, as a result of being able to trust other people, to be able to trust myself. And so for well, actually longer than that, since August of last year, my family and I made a plan where I came to Louisiana first. I took the teaching job, became established here, and then we were going to move them down when the house sold. Okay. So from the 1st of August of last year up until early March of this year, it was just me. I mean, we were still on the phone and all that. I went home for Christmas, all those things, but it was me. I mean, I had a support group by phone, but there wasn't a whole lot of people that it was my turn to
Right.
sustain it for myself. It's like, what is important to you? My beliefs are important to me. My beliefs that there's a higher power, and that I'm part of that. you know,
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And
my family is
yeah.
important to me, and my future is important to me. So in order not to go backwards, I had to make the choices that would sustain myself in that mindset. And let me tell you what happened. I did end up getting I actually got my own coach. I've been working with this guy for a long time. So I'm like, man, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go all the way in, because I felt like there was something. I was holding myself back. I'm going to take responsibility right here. I was the only thing holding myself back.
And
And
that's
here
so
I
true for
was.
many of us,
Yeah.
right?
And here I was telling my students, what are you waiting for? The platform is there. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, now Snap was gone.
Snapchat.
TikTok, you know,
Yeah.
the opportunity is there. Go produce. And so I had to turn that advice back on myself. What are you waiting for? And it was because part of it was, there was a part of me that didn't believe that what I had to say was valuable. And
Right.
so I had to understand that my story was valuable, my experience is valuable, and the way that I care about people is valuable. And the only way that I'm going to find out if these ideas have any success is to put them out there. And so when I did, here's what happened. During COVID, Beverly,
Right.
during COVID, I launched my website. I had been struggling with that for 4 years. I had the idea for 4 years. I launched my website. I
That's
started writing
good.
I started writing a book. I I started a radio program. I did a 6-week radio program. I launched a ministry in concert, in working together with a ministry in Africa. That's something I'd never done a mission trip. Well, now I've done it virtually. I've done it digitally, you know. And so while I'm here, I just turned off the world. Really, I mean, after like week 2, I'm like, I know everything that I need to know. I'm not watching the news anymore. I'm not a fearful person. I'm going to ground myself in the things that I know and believe, and I'm going to take care of me, and I'm going to work on the things that I want to work on. And oh my gosh, it all just it
It,
expl-
it
it
does.
exploded.
It does. I know we had that same effect happen, when COVID hit. Things were just kind of cruising right along, and it was a boom, right? But
Yeah.
it's a good thing. And again, a lot of things you just shared here, Coach, are so important because now you're filling up your own cup, right? And the more you fill up your own cup, the more you can give to others because you can't give outside of yourself what you don't have in yourself, right? And
Right.
that's key. And so being isolated in that point, and like you said, now sustaining it,
Yes.
that is so important, because talk is cheap. If you don't walk that talk, what good is it? All the education
Then
in
you
the
do
world.
become an imposter.
Yeah, you do. So you've been through a lot of education, but you're applying it, because you can be the smartest person in the world. You can have the most information that's out there. This whole library, the Google could be right up here in your brain, but if you don't implement it, then it's not worth a dime.
Stuck right here.
Yeah. So being able to share, and like you said, the stories, they are so important, because they do come from the heart. It's not a facade. You're not an imposter. You're real. You're real. And people can feel that realness. And I know they felt it here today. Comment below. Let us know what you really liked about Coach's story. Come on, guys. Let's get on board here. Here's a man that said, hey, my life is worth more than just trying to say, man up, just suck it up. It's like, get real. It's not about sucking it up. It's about becoming that best you. It's about understanding your purpose for being here. Get over your bad self, as someone told me years ago. And I really didn't understand what that comment was. Get over your bad self. I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
And it's like, wow. But this whole talk you did here today is pretty much saying, get over your bad self, right? Face the activity, face the realization, face what is there, and say, you know what? That person, that's not me. That's someone I thought I had to be to survive.
Right. Exactly.
Now it's time to be me and live. So the difference between surviving and living. Coach, can you capitalize on that a little bit? What it means to survive and what it means to really live?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, the thing for me is that's what I was doing. I was surviving. And if anybody knows anything about Maslow, you have the bottom of that triangle, and you have housing, you have food, you have, all the basic things that it takes just to stay alive: water, food, sunshine, house, all those things. But then if you want to go to those higher levels, then there's a component that's super important, and it's something I've already mentioned, which is love. You have to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to love your story. You have to understand how your story can work for you. And that's what I've learned since January of this year, is I've learned how my story can work for me. Not only did it propel me to where I am today, but there are parts of me that will help propel me even further if I will just get into, which I have. All I had to do, I got in touch with them, and I started moving with it. That I incorporated that into this is Coach Webb 2.0 or 3.0, because I had the Coach Webb that was the hurting kid that stayed a hurting kid even into my 20s and 30s, and then I had the Coach Webb that started getting help but was still on trying to do it myself. And then I have the Coach Webb that finally, the light came on.
People need people, right?
Yeah, people need people.
People need people.
But they have to have that love for themselves. They have to have that. I was so hard on myself, and I found myself, what did it was I heard myself repeating some of the same things that were told to me. You're just going to screw up. It's not going to work. You need to go, get your head out of the clouds. Those kind of things,
Yeah.
I heard myself saying that to myself, and that's not love. And so I realized that what I believe in is that love is how you show your representation, and I love my kids. I love my students. I treat them like my own. And so I saw how that had an effect on them. And I'm like, well, if I need to apply that to myself,
right.
what effect am I going to have on myself if I love myself and show myself some grace, forgive the areas, the points where I've made mistakes, and start intentionally making choices that benefit me, but that also benefit under other people. So Beverly, I strongly believe, I totally know that the coaching that I got over the 12 weeks of COVID is helping me, but it's also helping me to help others, because now you have a stronger me, you have a fuller me, you have a happier me, you have a me that's experienced success beyond what I call business, because I'd been totally successful at my career, but I'd been horrible at relationships because I just kept, hurt people can only hurt people. That's the bottom line.
Well, that's a key. It's very relevant what you just said there, Coach. Hurt people, right? An abuser has been abused. And I really feel that now, even more than the recent years, that this is so relevant because this is where the buck needs to stop, right?
Yes.
And I was a product of abuse, as a child, in the Catholic Church. Okay, and it's moving beyond that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, the buck stops here. This isn't going any
Yeah.
further, and to be able to recognize that, and this was a long time ago. My journey started in 74, but it's still recognizing those things because I had known something happened back then when I was a child. I didn't know what. And it wasn't until in the mid 90s when that part of my brain was crossed over, because sometimes it depends on what kind of abuse you've been going through, and what it was a cult thing here, that was going on in the church, that there was like a brainwashing, right? So there was
Sure.
like your little part of your brain is like sectioned off, that they can tap into by a certain word, a certain color, a certain smell, or whatever, right? Well, all the stuff that I had really been doing, with the healing process of myself, and really starting to do some really deep, intense mind work, and reconnecting brain, and just rewiring a lot of that stuff. I had an opportunity to work with a group of women that were decoding some of these programs, and being in that and part of it and working with the decoding, all of a sudden it tripped something in me, and it was like, oh my God, it took me back to 7 years old when all this started. It was like, oh my gosh, and so being able to go through that process to really understand what that was and get that cleaned out, that programming, because a lot of times it will run, behind the
Oh
scenes,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Believe me.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so when you suspect something, it's like you can't make sense of it. You just know something isn't right, and you don't quite understand it. That's something that's very real. And there are
Yes.
ways to get that brought up and out that will make a massive shift in your life, and a difference in the lives of who you associate with, right? And again, it's not about blaming and holding someone responsible. It's about saying, hey, I had an event happen, and unconsciously it's been driving me to do certain things that don't make sense. Now you can repair that. That's the major step of being that
Right.
better you, right?
Right.
To get that stuff out of the way that you don't even know is relevant or is in existence, other than you feel something isn't right,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's one of the, you just hit on one of the final, another key that I found I've been recently talking about, and that is this: is that it's not a giant leap. It's a
No,
small. No, you take one small step at a time.
exactly.
And one of the things that my mentor did with me, and I'd actually done with my students just in a different way, is he framed it this way: what can you do today to be 1% better? You know, and you start, or what can I do this week? Maybe it's going to take you a whole week. Maybe it's going to take you a whole month. I don't know. But what can you do to
Starting
be
today.
starting today to be 1% better? Pick an area than you were yesterday. And that just resonated with me so much because that's what I've been promoting to my students. Like, you don't have to get the whole picture all at once.
Right.
But if you can grasp hold of one little piece and say, all right, so let's say you want a new job. Have you looked at Indeed today? Have you applied for a job, a new job or new career? What skills do you have? Do you need a new skill? It's one small step
Right.
can propel you. And for me, it was a question and a click of a button. Like, what are you waiting for?
That's right. Because unless you take the
Click.
action, nothing's going
Here
to
I
happen.
am.
Right?
Here I am live on Facebook. This is what came to me today. This is what I'm going to talk about today. Please like, comment below, and I'm just going to keep doing it.
I want to go back to reference where you're saying, okay, you're gonna turn into this transformational coach, which you've been a transformational coach for a lot of years, right? You just didn't know it, didn't realize it, right? Because the transformation outside of yourself wasn't relevant because you hadn't made the transformation inside.
Inside. That's right.
Right. And so what you're looking to do now as a transformational coach, I'm just thinking, my brain goes off in all these avenues, right? So you're talking about bringing, these guys up onto this mountain, around this campfire. So here you have your transformational coaching business, and everybody meets around the campfire in this group coaching session that's almost like a little mastermind coaching session in an element where you are all connected and everyone gets an opportunity to answer questions, to speak their voice, to just allow to be themselves with guidance from someone who has been there that says, kudos. Now it's a support team. It's a support team that has a connection in an environment that's non-judgmental, is comfortable, is what guys like, fire,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Out
yes.
in the wilderness, right? And just journey together to make a difference in themselves, to make a difference in the world. Because that's all it takes
Yep.
is one person to do one little thing. And if we all do just one little thing, look at the difference the world can be in, right? And now is a real opportunity to do this because we have so many things with technology, at our footsteps here, and it's the time, as you said right there in the beginning, Coach, to tell your story.
Yeah. Tell your story.
And that's
And we're
what
seeing that. I was so encouraged. There was a movement just in recent months called Speak Up. And it started as a movement for women in professional sports to tell their truth about, being sexually molested, assaulted, or just generally, treated badly by their colleagues, coaches, teammate. It was amazing, some of the stories that came out. And I honor those. Do not get me wrong. I honor those so much because they were so powerful.
right.
But the one that really got me was when 6'6", 320 pounds, a former NFL football player who's now a professional wrestler, decided to tell his story. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it because that just doesn't happen. And a lot of people, I feel like, had their eyes opened by this guy who is just larger than life. Literally, physically, he just emotes. Pow!
Right.
This guy who seems so, he was taken advantage of by a woman. Now, you want to talk about really men don't talk about that.
Yeah, and a lot of times, it's not thought of that way.
No.
It's about women were the ones that were getting raped. But you know what? There have been men that have been raped, and I
Yeah.
know a few. And that story was very compelling, but it was really hard for them to speak about that because it's so foreign. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen a lot, but it does happen, right?
Yeah.
You
By the
know,
way, his name was Keith Lee. He used to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, and what happened was his date put a drug in his drink while he was in the bathroom, and he woke up, didn't have a clue where he was. He was naked. Luckily, he had most of his possessions. I mean, I encourage you, if you haven't heard the story, look it up because it will change your perspective when you see this man and you hear his story. I hope I've done that for some people today
oh,
too.
I'm sure you have.
I'm 6'2", 300.
Well, see, you're close behind.
I'm a pretty big guy, but
Well, Tony Robbins, right?
yeah, Tony
Everybody
Robbins
knows
is
Tony
huge.
Robbins. His story is
Yeah.
amazing. I mean,
That's
yeah.
why I resonated. He was one of the first people I started looking at when I was
Yeah.
thinking, when I was like, I wanted, and his story, again, there it was. It was his story that resonated with me.
Right. It's not
Because
what
he had been where I was too, and I was like, this
Yeah.
dude, the
Tony Robbins, right?
the guru of mindset and
Right.
change, and
Right. And
taking
he's been telling his story for a long time.
a long
And
time.
that's what makes it so compelling and so important, right? When you can touch someone's life through the heart, it builds that know, like, and trust. And it says, hey, they're real. They're not an imposter. They're not here just to take money from me. They're not here to tell me, lies. They're real because when someone is coming from their heart. And that is so, so special. So, Coach, I want to honor you for being on the show here today. It was such a treat. And I love
Thank
this
you.
show because when I invite guests on here, we don't know, much about each other. I mean, I've known you through other avenues, but I really never knew your story, which is so beautiful, and I know it has impacted lives of the listeners here today. And so if you guys reach out here to Coach. Let him help you tell your story because you know what? He just might be the author of a book where he's going to help you become an author of your book, and you guys can collaborate.
Yes.
Everyone has a chapter in the book, right? And when you need
Yes.
a publisher, hey, come to me. I've got a publisher for you. I
That's
have
right. There
several
you go.
publishers for you
There you
because
go.
that's what they do. They collaborate, with this so that everyone can get their story out because it's important now more than ever.
Yeah,
So,
that's so amazing because that's exactly the path I've been thinking. It's like,
well, then get her done, guy. Get her
I
done.
want to do a collection of stories. It's like, see,
See?
it's not just one person. It can be done.
Yes, that's right. So start giving people a chapter, and they have like maybe 4 or 5 pages per chapter. And hey, let's get it done. And you can do that. You can do
Yes.
that in a month.
Yes.
So, Coach, people can get a hold of you by your website, which is
Winning Life Solutions.
winninglifesolutions.com.
.us. No, .us.
Oh, .us.
Yes. Yes.
And we're gonna put that. We're gonna put that down below and up above so you can find that. And reach out to him in this virtual reality setting, especially if you're a fire guy, right?
Right. Well, and my handle on Facebook and Instagram is and Twitter, it's all the same. Coach Webb 13.
Coach Webb 13.
I'm-
What's
I'm-
the 13? Come on, tell
okay.
us what the 13
All right,
is,
so-
real quick.
Okay, real quick. So part of it is no fear. I'm not afraid of 13. Everybody.
Oh, the unlucky
It's-
13 thing.
Yeah, unlucky 13. Well, for me, Friday the 13th has always been a phenomenal day. I have
Yeah, me
one
too.
time
That's great.
in 50 something years, I've only can think of one time that I've had a bad Friday the 13th. And you know what I think a big part of it is exactly what we've been talking about. Mindset.
The mindset.
I was like, part of my brand is that 13 because it shows I'm not afraid of superstition. I'm not afraid of what other people say anymore. I'm going to put it right in there. 13. Let's
There
go.
you go. You know, and this is so true. I use this quote a lot of times. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It matters what you think of you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So with that, Coach, we are going to call this a show today. This has been so enjoyable. Thank you so much for being a guest here.
I've enjoyed it too.
So go out there and be that best you that you can be, because Coach and I, we are going to be the best we that we can be. And we'll see you all on the next show.